This one mistake could be costing you every public land elk hunt. Hey, I'm Matt Hartsky with Backbone Unlimited, and in today's video, we're going to discuss the one mistake that could be costing you more opportunities at elk. You've been doing almost everything right. You've got the boots, the pack, the tags, you're putting in the miles of preparation, but year after year, you're still going home empty-handed. The bulls are out there, but you're not getting the shot. There's a reason for that. One mistake I see time and time again that's costing hunters their chance, especially on public land, it's this. You're not hunting during the only hours that actually matter. Look, I get it. Hunting's tough. You're sore, you're tired, every day feels like a grind. You're spending every minute you can out there. But if you're consistently missing the only windows that matter, then you're not really giving yourself a chance to succeed. This episode is going to break that down in detail. Let's talk about when elk actually move. Not in theory, but in reality. On pressured public land, these aren't ranch elk. These bulls aren't feeding in open meadows all day. They're smart. They've been bumped by ATVs, spooked by pressure, and pushed into deeper country. Elk are crepuscular animals, meaning they move most at dawn and dusk. That's true everywhere, but on public land, that window is even tighter. Their movement, it drops off harder after that early morning window, and it doesn't ramp up again often until just before dark. There are two golden windows every day. First light, right at and just after legal shooting light. This is when elk are returning to their bedding areas. They're transitioning from feed into that bedding area. And also at last light, the final hour, and especially the final 15 to 30 minutes before last legal light. This is when they feel safe to move and feed again. Thermals are stable at these two times a day. Light is low and pressure is off. That's when the smart hunters are already in position, not moving around, not hiking from camp. They're already ready. So why do most guys miss it? Let's be real. Most hunters blow it without even knowing they're doing anything wrong. I've seen this in camps. I've watched it in the field, and I've done it myself early on. A lot of guys sleep in. They're tired from the hike in or burned out from glassing all day yesterday. This is especially true mid-season, late season, so they don't move fast in the morning. And by the time they're set up, the elk are already past them and they're headed for their bedding area into cover. Or they head out too early in the evening. I mean, maybe that's just because they're out there all day grinding and they've used a whole bunch of energy already. And then they want to get back to camp. They want to cook dinner. They want to be back there before dark. They don't want to hike out in the dark with a headlamp. I get it. Nobody wants to pack out in the dark after a long day, but that mindset is costing you opportunities. I can't tell you how many bulls I've glassed or called in during the last 15 minutes of legal light. That's when they finally feel comfortable to step out. That's when the old bull who's been holding tight all day suddenly rips a bugle and makes a move. And most guys, they're already halfway back to the truck. So how should we hunt mornings the right way? Mornings are your best shot to catch elk in the open, but only if you do it right. Here's how. Step one, be in position before first light. That means hiking in early, sometimes 4 a.m. early. You want to be glassing or already settled in your transition area when legal light hits, not moving there, coming over the ridge. Step two, know where elk are likely bedding. If you scouted it right, you'll have a solid guess. Set up near travel corridors between feeding and bedding zones. Some folks have asked me, how do I tell on a map where a bedding and a feeding zone are? Well, the feeding zones are going to be out in meadows, or they're going to be in the boggy low areas, like in the creek bottoms, places where there's a lot of good vegetation where they wouldn't feel safe later in the day, right? What's a bedding area look like? Well, those are usually going to be the dark timber sides, the north-facing slopes. The areas in between, a lot of times those are the south-facing slopes. And those are going to be your transition areas where you're going to be able to catch them between the two. Step three, mind your thermals. Early in the morning, cool air is sinking down. If you don't understand wind and thermals, check out my video. I'll link to it up here that explains wind and thermals in detail. So you've got to be set up so that your scent is dropping away from the animals, away from where you expect them to come in, right? If you come in above them, your scent's going to be blowing right down to them because of the thermals. Step 4, don't blow it by being noisy. You've got to walk slowly. You've got to use natural cover. You've got to stay quiet and glassing and sneaky longer than you think you need to be. All of those sound like common mistakes, but it's really easy ways to blow those elk out if you're headed down into transition zones and you're expecting them to be moving up through there. They may be up in there earlier than you thought. So just take your time. When done right, a good morning routine can put you in bow or rifle range before most hunters have even unzipped their tents. 2 years ago, legal shooting light was around 6:10 a.m. and this bull up here was on the ground 6 minutes into September 1st. And I'm not telling you that to brag. I'm just telling you about how effective that first light timing can be, right? If you're already in a good area that you understand and know. Now let's talk about last light. The time I believe probably kills more bulls than any other. This is when elk come alive again. The heat's finally dropping down from the day. Human pressure fades. A lot of folks only hunted the morning, and so there just aren't as many people out there a lot of times. Shadows are getting long. Elk get up to feed, move, and reestablish the herd contact. The mistake I see is this. Guys pack up too early. They want to play it safe. They don't want to hike out in the dark, or they think if it hasn't happened by now, it's not going to. But oh, so many times it's those last 10 to 15 minutes that we end up getting good action. Elk don't care about the clock. They don't care about your wind and safety and darkness issues. And that last 30 minutes of legal light, that's when things happen. That's when you see a spike push out of the timber, and right behind him, here comes that 6x6 you've been dreaming about. You need to already be set up near prime elk real estate in the evening. Quiet, with the wind right, you're watching, glassing, you're ready. This isn't the time to be hiking in from camp into the areas when you hear that bull 2 ridges over and you shoulda, coulda, woulda been in that area where he was at. You've got to be there when the timing is right. So make sure that you're in that prime elk habitat early enough that you're in that right spot and not having to head there later on or disappointed because you didn't get there and now the elk are talking and it's too late, too close to dark to be able to get there in time. You should already be where you expect that movement. I used to think that mornings were the best. So I've been guilty of poo-poo in the evenings a lot of time. But my son Saxton, he started hunting on his own several years ago and was having just a ton of action in the evenings. And I realized I just probably hadn't been hunting as hard in those later hours as I should have been. In fact, I often plan my whole day around last light now rather than, just planning on hunting that morning and then kind of forgetting about the rest of the day. And I spend the afternoon easing into that area, late afternoon, right? So that I'm exactly where I need to be when the light drops and those elk start moving. If you're not in position at that time, getting ready for that movement, you're just a hiker in camo. Now, here's the truth most guys don't want to hear. You're not going to outsmart the elk with gadgets and gear, and usually you're not sneaking into thick timber in the middle of the day trying to beat a whole herd of noses. I have tried that dozens of times at least, and my success rate is extremely low trying to sneak in on them in the middle of the day. Oh, I'll have a lot of encounters, but I have never killed an archery elk in the middle of the day hunting them blindly. There are probably some times where I could have or should have, but it didn't work out, and usually doesn't work out because they're ready. They're more aware. It's really hard to get into that thick stuff and think that you're going to sneak up on all those noses, especially if there's more than one there. So you've really got to outlast them, and that starts to committing to those most important hours of the day. Your entire hunt should revolve around maximizing the value of first and last light. The rest of the day, use it to recover, reset, Reposition. I know you're going to hear guys say that you can hunt elk all day long, but I'm telling you that you just wear yourself down and you're not as good as you could be later on. And you wear yourself down so you're not as good as you could be for successive days, you know, over the course of a month of September bow hunting, for instance. In the midday, try to eat your clean calories. Get stocked up on those calories. Hydrate, sharpen broadheads. Glass from the shade is cool. You know, you might catch something standing up or getting a drink. Take a short nap if you need to, but be prepared to get into that evening spot early. Too many guys burn energy all day long, and then they crash when it counts. You want to be mentally sharp, physically ready, and emotionally dialed in when the last light opportunity comes. There's a lot of science about how focused we can be, how long we can stay focused as human beings. And if you're trying to focus all day long, plus you're walking and grinding and burning calories, you're going to have a lot harder time being sharp when the moment of truth happens. When you get your one chance, your 1 10-second window, one glimpse at antlers slipping in through the trees, the guys that are walking out, they're never going to see it. Really, this is the part of the hunt that separates the killers from the confused, the ones who are wondering why they just can't seem to kill elk consistently. This is where it separates the 10% who will harvest an elk this year. Those are just the stats, somewhere around 10% or less. And even the 1% of us who kill elk every year. So ask yourself honestly, have you been quitting 30 minutes too soon? It doesn't seem like a lot, but I'm telling you, 30 minutes in the evening too soon can be an absolute game changer. Have you been hiking in while the elk are already bedded in the mornings? Are you really putting yourself in position to succeed, or are you just logging miles, hiking around, hoping? Fix this one mistake. Hunt smarter, not just harder. Build your strategy around those two key windows, first light and last light, and everything else becomes secondary. That's what consistent killers do. They don't hunt more, they hunt better. If this connected with you, please share it with a hunting buddy who needs to hear it. Drop a comment about your best first or last light encounter. And if you want help dialing in your entire backcountry system, gear, food, mindset, fitness, be sure to subscribe or join my team at backboneunlimited.com. Hunt hard, hunt when it matters, never settle.